Good evening. My name is Jemima Beatrice. I'm your host this evening. We have in studio this evening Dr. Emma Kantema. She's the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Youth. She's talking to us about some of the efforts that she has undertaken to capacitate and to empower young people in the country. Thank you for joining us, Honorable.
Thank you very much for having me, Jemima. A very good evening to you and good evening to the viewers as well.
Thank you. Honorable, can you talk to us about some of the initiatives you've undertaken to capacitate some of the young people in the regions?
Well, Jemima, as a ministry, we are constantly seeking ways on how to empower our young people, given the mandate that we have to ensure that the young people are empowered, and we do this through various initiatives. So one way that we are embarking on this process is through youth skills training and development. This is really for us to ensure that we capacitate the young people to give them the necessary information, the training that is required in order for them to increase their chances to be employed or to employ others. Now, maybe to start off, I just returned from the regions, and last week we had a very good initiative that I initiated from my office, and we calling it SME Performance, Youth-Owned SME Performance Public Lecture. Now, the reason for initiating this public lecture is really to stimulate public dialogue and also to provide the young people with the much needed information required as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Now, with this initiative, I entered into a partnership with UNAM that provides the location or the venue for us to host it, and because it's really a blend from using a theoretical aspect up to the practical solution. So it's UNAM, and then also we had FNB on board that provided us with financial assistance to be able to host these young people. And what was also very key was that FNB sent a representative that could speak to the young people in terms of the products that they offer. Often we tell the young people, listen, please go and create employment, but how are we coming on board to assist them to create that employment? So for me, that's what drove this initiative, to give them the much needed information that they need. And we also had one company, Bellatrix. They are an asset management, but a fund management company that's investing also in young people's projects, and they assist these young people right even from crafting a business plan, taking them through a whole boot camp in terms of what you need to develop a bankable business plan. And with that, it was very well received, and I'm very happy with the turnout. It was actually oversubscribed, so the young people came out, and they really found this platform very necessary, engaging, because then they know where to go to get this information.
You say that it was oversubscribed, so clearly there's this demand for what you've offered. Do you think government is giving enough support to young people, young entrepreneurs in particular? And also entrepreneurship is something you feel very strong about. Why? And do you think young people, is there an area that they need support?
You see, starting from the problem that we have, or the challenge of youth unemployment, when you look at statistics, even at sub-Saharan level in Africa, governments are promoting entrepreneurship, especially for young people, taking cognizance of the high rates of unemployment. And not just that, but Africa, as we all know, is a very youthful continent. So you have over 60% of population of Africa is young people. So we need to start shifting the focus to ensure that we are able to reap a demographic dividend from this youth bulging population. Now, in terms of the support from government, it is there. When you look at various institutions that government, that's run by government or empowered, you look at the DBN, that's a government-owned entity. DBN, the Development Bank of Namibia, have various schemes. One that I always often refer to is a skills-based lending facility. This is very important because we have high rates of graduates who are unemployed. So with this skill then, it offers the financial access for a graduate to start up their own business. And that is all that you need to prove that you are a graduate from the vocational training, and then to obviously take you through your plan that you have. So all these are various initiatives that government has. Now, coming back to our ministry, even before I go to the ministry's one, also we have what we call the credit guarantee scheme, which was part of the SME financing strategy. You may recall in the HPP1, it featured prominently where now this credit guarantee scheme bridge the gap between the challenge that we often hear the young people voicing of collateral. So young people will have a very good plan, a bankable plan, but then you must either have a house. I mean, as a graduate, where do you get a house to put down? Or your parents step in, you have parents from disadvantaged communities. So government has put up this fund that is being administered. I know FNB has come on board. I was even at the launch, so they are doing a great job. So really, it's also looking at how can we make it possible for the young people. How do we create that conducive environment for the young people to engage into entrepreneurship? That scheme is very important because collateral is very key, especially when you are getting to loans. Now, coming to what our ministry is currently championing in terms of entrepreneurship, we have two key schemes that we are running. The Namibia Youth Credit Scheme, we call it NYCS. This scheme is it's a Commonwealth, we call it kind of social welfare model, because it provides young people with funding from small, seed capital from 8,000. You start at 8,000. And this was meant for us to ensure that even young people in the rural areas are able to engage in economic activities. Now, once you start with this lending, it's a revolving credit scheme. You are then able to upgrade and get a second loan, third loan. We also have loans that we call higher end loans. That is around over 100,000. This is really for us to ensure that access to finance is provided to our young people for them to engage themselves in the mainstream of the economy. The other initiative that we are implementing as a ministry is the 121 Rural Youth Enterprises. Last year we started rolling it out with 28 enterprises that we funded, translating into 2 enterprises per region with the assistance of DBN that has put in financial injection of 8 million. We were then able to roll this out, and we have started. But in this financial year, as a ministry, we have provided for 10 million. This is now to ensure that we expand to roll it out to the remaining of the 121. Why it's called the 121 is that it is established in every constituency. You want to encourage young people, wherever they are, in the rural areas or in the urban, not to migrate, because we know that young people migrate to town for better life, for better opportunities, and there's issues of urbanization, housing challenges that we are facing. So we're really trying also to ensure that we are capacitating the young people in the rural areas. Also, when you look at the labor force survey, I think the latest is the 2018, the youth unemployment is more higher in the rural areas compared to the urban areas. So we are really trying also to ensure that we capacitate in both areas.
So recently the Trades Minister lamented over the low uptake of SME applications for equipment. Do you also see this playing out in your ministry for these particular initiatives that you've just mentioned?
Yes, remember when we talk about initiatives, we don't just talk about programs that are run by the ministry, because we are the custodian of empowering young people. Yes. So when we speak to them, we really try to give them information as much as possible also from other entities. I recall in Rundu, this particular initiative that I just indicated, one young person stood up and asked a question, and that was on the 30th. And she says, no, I went to apply for the credit for the equipment aid scheme closing on the 31st. You see, young people, opportunity is granted running for a period, but you only go on the last day. So what I took from that is that we need to create more information. Sharing. I think that's very critical. And also at the same time, I really want to encourage young people to use the various platforms that we have to our advantage. I mean, nowadays, every young person has a smartphone. So if you go on www.msyns.gov.na, we are able to see that, okay, now the ministry, the applications are open for credit scheme, or this is what we are now calling for. Like we have also other initiatives on charcoal. So it's always good that young people should also seek for information and not just use our social media for something else.
No, absolutely. I agree. But we talk about the Gen Zs, the millennials consuming news in non-conventional ways.
Yeah.
So is the ministry on the platforms where the youth are, is the other question.
Oh, yes.
Are you on Instagram?
No, yes.
Are you on TikTok?
Please, go on there, you find us.
Okay, we'll go for a short break and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, if you've just joined us, we have in studio Honorable Dr. Kantema. She is talking to us about the initiative they are undertaking in the ministry to empower young people. Now, Honorable, before we went on a break, you were talking about the youth-friendly approaches that your ministry has adopted in recent months, years?
Yes.
So can you tell us about your TikTok, your Instagram?
As a ministry, we realized that we need to be responsive to the needs of those that we are serving. And in doing so, we're following the trend, especially in terms of communicating information. And we have our presence on social media in terms of the various modem. We are present on Facebook, we have a Twitter account, we have TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. And yeah, in addition to the website, of course, that we have. So it's very important that our young people should follow these pages, because it's very key for us to disseminate information, to create awareness on the programs that we have, knowing that young people live their life on social media.
And they only live once.
Yes.
Now, the one big thing that everybody talks about when they believe they are being empowered is getting involved in politics. Now, your ministry, as the guardian for youth empowerment, what are you doing? What are the initiatives you are undertaking to help young people get involved in political participation?
Well, Jemima, on that one, I want to make a reference to our National Youth Policy, which is a blueprint that provides a framework in terms of government empowering young people. This is a cabinet-adopted policy dedicating a decade of youth mainstreaming in various institutions and at various levels. Now, with that National Youth Policy, we have 4 pillars. The first pillar speaks to youth skills and training. That's on training and education. The second pillar speaks to youth health and well-being. And the third pillar speaks to youth economic and employment opportunities. That deals with what we've just discussed previously in terms of entrepreneurship and so on. And the fourth pillar speaks to youth civic and political participation, because we realize that in fostering a well-rounded, productive youth, we need to also capacitate them in order to undertake or to partake into political activities or also decision making. Now, with that pillar, we have various strategies that we have laid down. We have strategies such as the youth parliament. You have seen the children's parliament. So those are also initiatives that we support. And also we have a program that we run together with the National Youth Council, which is our voice of the youth. It's an entity that resides under the ministry, It's called Youth Leadership Development Program. This Youth Leadership Development Program has produced a number of leaders. You see them even in Parliament. Leaders such as Honorable Maximilian Kashimune, Honorable Juliet Kabetuna, Honorable Shifeta, Honorable Emma Kantema-Gaomas. All these young leaders were groomed through this program. It's very important that we groom the young people, and we encourage them also to partake in the democracy of our country. So with that program, that's how we encourage young people to partake in activities such as political activities, because we know that the young people are the future, but they need to be ready as well.
So when they are ready, what is your ministry doing to make sure that they are involved in policy making and decision making?
Well, the National Youth Council that I just alluded to is a voice of the youth that ensure that the hopes and aspirations of the young people are mainstreamed in policies and in legislation. So you will see that when there's a policy or when there's a bill that's being initiated, the National Youth Council always serve as a voice, and they do participate in this various engagement. So it becomes then that conduit where the young people's input are considered. I also want to mention that when it comes to other bodies, for example, the National Resettlement Committee, National Resettlement Committee at the regional level, and even at the Land Reform Advisory Commission level, there is always provision for a representative from a youth organization. Now, National Youth Council is an umbrella body where all youth organizations in the country are affiliated. As we stand now, we have around 51 youth organizations that are affiliated to this youth council, and we also have a regional youth forum across the country, 14 of them. So each regional youth forum have a chairperson that represents at various stages. For example, we have at the regional council level what they call regional development forum. You have constituency, you have VDCs, village development committee, you have constituency development committee, and then you have the regional development committee. By virtue of the composition of these committees, a youth organization should always have a seat. Now imagine, that's how development is filtering through, and the young people have the opportunity to provide input. So right at the village level, because these regional youth forums cascade down up to constituency youth forum. So we have 121 constituency youth forums headed by a chairperson, elected by the young people themselves, and then escalated to a regional youth forum, elected by the region and representing the young people, and then escalating up to a representative council. The representative council is the highest decision-making body of the National Youth Council when the National Youth Council is not in the General Assembly. So really, we ensuring that the voices of young people are integrated, are mainstreamed, and the voices are heard where decision-making is taking place, especially also not just decision-making, but at planning level. Remember with National Planning Commission, where does planning start? It starts right through from Constituency Development Committee and escalating up to the regional level. So we are ensuring that young people are not just put into positions, but they are given a platform to be heard right from a constituency level. I really like the inclusion of the National Youth Council, because by so doing we are able to have a more organized and focused young people representing the views of the largest population of this country. As we all know, that the preliminary population census is telling us that young people constitute around 71%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we also know that there are marginalized communities like the San and the Ovahimba, that are like the Ovahimba in particular, they're nomadic, they're not always in the same place. So what is your ministry doing to bridge the gap between the urban development of the youth and that of those rural marginalized youth?
Before I come to your question, I think it was last year. No, it's beginning of this year. We had a conference in Swakopmund where we have assisted the marginalized communities to form their own body, where their needs also are taken care of at this platform. We assisted them through the National Youth Council, elected their leader, and they are also represented. As we speak, we have a marginalized youth who's serving at the National Youth Council board. This is the highest decision making of the National Youth Council. So you can see now that they are really mainstream. Yes, they are really taken through. Now coming back to your question, how we are ensuring that the rural young people in the rural areas are also capacitated. It's going back to what I mentioned, like the 121. You may recall that every constituency now have a youth enterprise. So we really encourage that we have activities happening right at the constituency level, be it in the rural areas, and to ensure that we give them all equal opportunities to participate in the mainstream of the economy, or when it comes to training, to ensure that they are also afforded this opportunity. We have the National Youth Service that provides training. We have the training center at Rietfontein, and every intake, we always ensure that every constituency, every region is represented. They are able to send through requests for training. So that's how we are also ensuring that the young people in the rural areas are not just left out, they are not left behind, but they are also capacitated as well.
Speaking about Rietfontein, it has always been in the papers for all the wrong reasons. So what has your ministry done to renovate that place and make sure it is good enough for people to be there?
No, the Rietfontein Center is, like you mentioned, we've renovated it. We even expanded. In fact, the capacity, we are not able to meet it for now, because we now have, through the general support of the Chinese government, we have built more rooms. The hostel is second phase. But now I'm very happy to announce that in August still, the youth intake, the training intake that was done by the Honorable Minister, where she officiated, we are now standing at 750, which is one of the largest. And with that 750 young people that have started with the civic training in Henties Bay, they are now going to undergo up to the skills training level that happens at Rietfontein. Because the National Youth Service training is divided into 3 phases. The first phase targets the civic training, where you want to inculcate patriotism, fostering the nationhood, really turning youth into productive citizens. And the second phase focuses on the skills development, the skills training part, where we have around 11 trades, where young people are able to either partake into agriculture as a training, there's hospitality, there's business administration, there's metal fabrication, the vocational subjects, and these are accredited courses. And then the third phase then focuses on volunteerism, because you want to encourage young people to start first thinking their country first. So we then place them at a government project where they then render service for the time, and then thereafter, then graduation, and obviously they should then go into the job market or start their own own businesses. Yeah.
So in conclusion, it's on everybody's lips. What is the status of the stadium right now?
Well, the status of the stadium, I think within a week, we should be able to apprise the nation in terms of the progress that we've made. We know that it's mostly attributed to the Procurement Act, the Act of 2015, and as amended. We did move a step further, where at some point, I think that was around June, we notified the bidder. You know, in terms of the provision of the procurement, you have to notify the bidder, and then there's a 7 day standstill period to allow for any other bidders who participated in the process, should there be any other challenges or objections. And unfortunately, we went through that process, and it went to the review panel. The notification was then set aside, meaning that we needed to start from the beginning. So we started that process that ended around end of July. As we speak, the team that's entrusted with the bid evaluation committee, that's the first phase, have started with the shortlisting and the adjudication of this process, which will then go to the procurement committee and ultimately notify the bidder, the successful bidder. With the update that we have is that this process is moving, at least now there's light at the end of the tunnel. And like I mentioned, within a week's time, we are able to provide the nation with a better update, that of notifying the bidder and obviously taking it through the procurement process in order for us to comply. Because we know that the spirit and the letter of the Procurement Act is really to ensure transparency, and that is a process that we have taken. Unfortunately, it comes also with its teething problems.
Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to have you soon here.
Thank you.
Now, thank you for tuning in. Have a good evening.